Welcome to Be the Revolution podcast, presented by GM Revolution, a men's skincare line dedicated to helping them change the world.
Hello friends, today's episode is a little different. Not only is this the first episode that has no special guest, but it is also the first on the road episode that I've done, so in advance I apologize for not the 100% clear audio. You may be asking why I decided to do this. The short answer is that I was curious what would happen if I was alone with my thoughts for a 3-hour car ride and just press play. I hope you enjoy this episode and be sure to share your thoughts with us at GM Revolution. Let's get to the episode.
Do you want to hear something hilarious? I just spent the last 20 minutes in my car talking into this microphone while I was driving to hopefully give a better audio since I thought the road might be loud. Turns out the road is loud. It's so loud that you can't hear a word I'm saying in the microphone because it's only picking up how darn loud the road is. So what I'm going to attempt to do here, this is take 2. I'm going to attempt to say exactly verbatim everything I said for the past 20 minutes. Here, I'm going to try to do it. Also, I want this podcast episode to be sponsored by, oh man, I just got on the highway and the Midwest smells terrible right now. Driving through some farmland and it is not pretty. So thank you for all of the cows in the world for sponsoring this podcast. Also for the taxpayers of America that don't want to fix their roads and force me to re-record this entire podcast. Thank you for sponsoring this podcast. With that being said, welcome back to the Be the Revolution podcast presented by GM Revolution Men's Skincare. This is a little bit different. I would say that I've never done this before, but that'd be a lie for 2 reasons. One is I just did this 20 minutes ago, and secondly, I do find myself talking in the car by myself quite often. So this is really nothing new for me, but this is different in terms of the GM Revolution podcast. This has never been done before, an on the road series, and I was thinking, and we'll get into why I was thinking this, but I was just thinking that that I want to kind of just start having very open, free flowing conversations about stuff that I've been learning in my own life and kind of use it as a platform to verbalize things that I've been thinking and kind of flesh out thoughts and kind of force myself on the spot to really make a decision on some of the thoughts that I've been thinking and kind of put thoughts to words. And I think this is going to be very, this is very unscripted, as you can all see. I wrote down 3 talking points, and we'll see if we touch on all of them. But we'll just kind of go where it is. And I think for anyone listening that might be in a similar time in their life or just want to get some universal truths out, I think that's kind of what we're looking for. That's kind of what I want to talk about. And at this point in my life, I happen to be on the road quite a bit. So I didn't want to waste time because I do, and we'll get into concepts of consuming. I do consume a lot, and the road is it's a very introspective place in and of itself, just the nature of it. It's just you and the road and where it takes you. But it is, as you can see in the rear view mirror, it is that time of the day where things are quieting down and you can start to, you got all this time by yourself. I got 2 hours left in a road trip, and it's just me, the road, and my thoughts. So I figured I might as well record something, and by the time this airs on the podcast, if it ever does, I want this to be generic in itself in terms of this. For those that know me, I am not, like, this is not some sort of vlog of look at what I'm doing, this is what I'm up to. In fact, I won't tell you where I'm driving to. I won't tell you where I'm going or even what season of the year it is. You maybe can, I don't know, you can guess, but this isn't about me. For those that know me, like, I am not I'm a very introverted, inward person that it doesn't mean I don't like talking, by all means, or enjoy hearing myself talk, but there's a reason that if you've been following GM Revolution or have listened to the Be the Revolution podcast before, there's a reason you may never have seen my face outside of a couple Instagram snippets, and that's kind of intentional. That when we were forming GM Revolution this time last year, it's crazy to think it's already been a year. I always knew that I didn't want, like, it's just not my personality to put myself on the cover of anything, and I'm totally okay with being the symbolic face behind the scenes of, putting everything together, making a plan, but like, there's no modeling pictures of me, and that's very intentional because that's just not who I am as a person. And so, oh my goodness, this road is so much quieter now. I can stop screaming, hopefully. But anyways, yeah, this is not about me, but for those that don't know, my name is Mike McGuire, CEO, co-founder of GM Revolution Men's Skincare. I do host the Be the Revolution podcast, so if you've heard this before, this is, I guess, just my face behind the voice that is the number one podcast in men's skincare. Kidding, but maybe not. But yeah, I do want this to be just a space to where I can talk about things that I'm noticed of life things, not necessarily my own life, but just, seeking for universal truths that I pick up on as I grow as a person. And I would love to share some thoughts with you while I'm on the road. But it's really just a space to where men can start to maybe hopefully have a dialogue. For all the women that are listening to this, if you didn't know this, most men don't have a space to where they can talk about their feelings. I know that's pretty foreign to some of the women listening, but it's absolutely the truth of a lot of guys out there. Like, for one, they're not talking about their feelings certainly not to other men, and even worse, like, it could be the case they're not talking about their feelings to themselves, which is even more dangerous. And so hopefully, like, my whole goal of GM Revolution is to show men that there's another way of doing anything. Like, yeah, skincare for me, I grew up in the industry. It's cool. Like, I had a skincare routine when I was 9 years old, and so I don't think it's anything earth-shattering in and of itself. But I truly believe that, like, when it comes to men and when it comes to skincare, it can open up so many doors for men in terms of the way they look at themselves and the way they care for themselves. Like, there's a saying, like, skincare is self-care. Okay, cool. But at the same time, like, self-care is not something that is, like, when it comes to men, self-care for men historically has been, and I quote, rub some dirt on it. And that's like a lot of guys just grow up with that mentality, and there's just a lot to unpack there. But I guess we can start with, like, for those that don't know, I love books. I love classic literature. when I'm not working on GM Revolution, I'm probably reading, and we're going to get into one topic today is the concept of consuming content and what content you're consuming. But I love Ernest Hemingway as a writer. Like, there are a few people in history that have been able to describe a character, describe a situation, and describe an entire generation the way that he's been able to. But when people hear him, like, that dude is just a man's man. Like, that dude was deep sea fishing off of Cuba for like a good part of his life. He was going on like African safaris and going like big game hunting. Like, when you think of a stereotypical man's man, it's a character out of Ernest Hemingway that is Ernest Hemingway himself. And so I think what he's done is he's created a stereotypical man that like is strong, and the word strong is used very loosely. It's the guy that is going to go to San Fermin and to the Running of the Bulls and kill a bull because that's what a man's supposed to do. Like, he's supposed to take nature by the hands and dominate it. And that's really attractive to a lot of guys reading it. Like, there's something about it, and I fall into it as well, of tapping into, I think, man's innate like desire for strength. And back then, like that post-war generation, like a lot of that strength was physical strength, because it certainly wasn't mental strength. That they call it the lost generation for a huge reason, of the generation after World War II, because man, like what that generation had to go through, of coming home from the war and like having to deal with their emotions, but they dealt with it by literally like rub some dirt on it, be tough. If you show emotion, you're weak. And that's kind of invoked by a lot of Hemingway's characters, and it's easy to fall into that trap when you read him, but at the same time you have to reflect and be like, whoa, let's take a pause here. Let's look at how he ended up. And Hemingway suffered from insane mental health issues, and he ended up taking his own life. And like, heartbreakingly sad of this guy that you just think is in control of everything, ends up taking his own life. And I think himself, like really, like it's that I'm blanking on a word, juxtaposition. That's your Scrabble word of the day. Really juxtaposes like man's desire for strength, but also the ways that he goes about and does it. And so that's like super high level of what I'm trying to do with GM Revolution. Just show men that there's other ways to exist. There's like talking to yourself, and I try to do this through self-awareness and promoting different ways to be, increase self-awareness and be self-aware and be in touch with who you are as a person. I think a lot of people and a lot of men can go a long time without really understanding what drives them, and how they feel about the world, and how they feel about relationships, and how they feel when they look themselves in the mirror. And like, skincare is actually a great barrier, or a great entrance to that barrier to get men to talk to themselves, because after you're done with a skincare routine, you're gonna look in the mirror, and it's those introspective moments, those quiet moments of our, like, that we have to ourselves, that are really important. Also, let's see if I can tap the screen. Look how beautiful that sunset is. Excuse me while I look through the mirrors. Shout out the Midwest. Never disappoints a sunset over a grassy plain. But anyways, skincare, men, masculinity. It's one of those things to where it's something that's men have shied away from for so long, is taking care of their skin. It's the same thing of men have shied away from getting in touch with their emotions, to where if we can break into I think skincare can be a gateway drug into positive mental health in men. And that's what we're trying to do here at Be the Revolution. That's our revolution. Hoping to inspire you to do your own revolution, be your own revolution, create your own revolution. But yeah, a lot to unpack there. And I saw something, and we're going to dive into this, but the first thing on my list today was that I just wanted to talk about was the concept of consuming versus creating. And I think we all do in today's world is I consume a lot of content, and everyone's content is different of whether it be Netflix, social media, YouTube. I said earlier I read a lot, and I've just been thinking lately of, like, I try to budget an hour a day at the end of my day before I go to bed, read 20 pages a day. It usually takes about an hour, depending on the book. But and I was just thinking of, I love that. I need that in my life to wind down. But at the same time, I was thinking, at what point, at what stage in your life do you need to not necessarily stop consuming content, but at what point do you need to start creating your own content? And like I said, content is very, very generic here. What I'm calling this, like, this is not what I'm calling, like, creating content. Like, I'm not telling you to go be an influencer. You will, like, this is as close as you'll see to get me to, like, put my face in front of a camera. Like I said, I don't use a personal Instagram page. I don't love social media. And so the road's getting loud. I apologize. We'll give it 30 seconds here. All right, back to a quiet road. So you'll never, what I'm saying is, like, when it comes to consuming and creating content, like, one thing I've really tried to do lately is think about how I want to kind of create a lasting impact, create things that will last. Of, we spend so much time consuming other things that other people are creating, and at what point do you get to where you want to create something for other people to consume, of sharing your gifts with the world. And so what I started to do is I 20 pages a day. I don't want that to end, but what I'm doing is I'm having 1 week where I consume a lot of content, and the next week what I'm calling, it's the creation week, to where I take that hour and a half where I would be consuming content, and I use it to create. And for me, create, it takes a lot of different mediums. So for example, a couple years ago, what I started to do is every time I would finish a book, I would write a kind of like a blog post on just my thoughts. It wasn't like a literary criticism or anything, but it was just a way to take what I've consumed and, like, really package it up into, this is what I agree with, this is what I disagree with, and this is just what I fundamentally believe, of whatever book it is, of picking out those truths, and piecing through it, but taking time, dedicating time to create something for myself based on what I've consumed. So that's one medium. And I guess in, like, this too, I've never done this before, of a lot of the things that I'm going to be talking about today is based on stuff that I have consumed. And so this is a way of just verbalizing what I've been thinking. I do spend a lot of time thinking. It is in my brain. That's just who I am. I am a thinker. But I want to have a personal mission statement, and I do, of, like, yes, I've thought, but I actually want to do as well. I want to take what I've thought. I've done the thinking. I've done the planning. I want to create as well, and I want to have a lasting impact. And so, more loud road. Hopefully this doesn't go on for long. But that's just something I would encourage all of you to do, is start to think of, where can I consume less of what I do during that creation week. Is I don't read 20 pages a day, but I read 10 pages. And so it evens out over time, to where in my consume week, I will be consuming more than usual. So it does even out over time, but dedicating, I mean, what's an hour a day for a week? 7 hours to just create and to just brainstorm and get the creative juices flowing. I think it's those moments that are actually going to have a bigger impact now as we grow older. And I don't know where everyone is at in their stage of life, but as I grow older, like, well, you got to wake up one day and say, all right, I'm going to start creating something for myself. And so this is part of it as well. I want to verbalize my thoughts. I want to share my thoughts. I don't want to just keep them in my head. And like I said, this isn't about my life. This isn't like a vlog to where it's like, hey, look at me. This is no James Corden sing along in the car. This is really just high level, take my name out of the equation. This is just me sharing some things that I've picked up on in life. So that's my take on consume versus create. And also, when you are consuming, like we talked about toxic masculinity, like there's some toxic things that we consume, and like you start to see how I saw a post today that kind of sparked this, where I wanted to have this dialogue, was you are what you consume. And like it's not until you feel it, like even take social media for example, like there gets to be a point where you feel some damages that go on, because there's some bad content that like really can mess with you, and it's not until you actually feel how it takes hold of your life that you realize, like, yes, I'm becoming what I'm consuming. So I really like that post, and what I'm trying to do with like GM Revolution is trying to be what a concept here of a positive place for men on the internet, because like A, men don't have that platform, and B, like the internet just needs to be like, it's an uphill battle, but I'm trying to like start conversations around like men having positive interactions with themselves. I'm trying to be positive content that others can consume. Like today I saw one post, like I spend a lot of time just for those that have never done it, I'm sure it's a lot of you, go after this, go search on Instagram, go follow or at least search #masculinity, and like everything that I say from here on out will just make sense. Some of the stuff that goes out there that men consume, and there's some tough stuff out there. I saw one today that was I actually laughed out loud when I saw this. And it grabbed my attention. It was the first picture on the Instagram post said how to be more masculine, and so I was like, okay, you caught me with the hook. I'll swipe to the next picture. Step 1 was learn how to fight. And the first comment was, and I quote, "So true, this new generation isn't violent enough." And that's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm trying to break down, is this concept of a man needs to violently take on the world. A man needs to fight and be at odds with the world. The world is not against anyone. The world is the world. Like, the world is as you see it is. Like, you are what you consume, but at the same time, the world is as you see it. And like, if you want to fight with the world, if you want to be violent with the world, you're only being violent with yourself. And so I'm just trying to show men here that like there's another way, like through positive self-talk, through positive self-dialogue, and like tuning into what actually motivates you, because violence should not motivate you. Like, there's something else going on. Like, take that time to unpack that. If you do feel violent towards the world, like, take time to unpack that and dig deeper, as opposed to the gut reaction being learn how to fight. Physical strength, like, newsflash, in today's day and world, like, unless we're still hunters and gatherers, but like, physical strength doesn't make you more of a man. And I'm a huge advocate of not necessarily physical strength. I'm a huge advocate of physical health. Like, being physically healthy makes you a man, because that's tuning into what you need, what your body needs. Like, but just as important it is to like tune into what your body needs, like tune into what your mind needs as well. Shout out this sunset as well. It's gonna start getting dark here. Let's see. It's not bad. It's not bad. Thank you for Honda for sponsoring this, for getting me to point A to point B in the dark. So yeah, that's my big takeaway of like, just really be conscious of what you consume, because it can really drag you down. And I spend a lot of time on #masculinity to try to fight it. But I know, like, as I consume that content, I'm third party consuming that content. And like, it's just, the content you consume really does impact how you look at the world. So that was my first one, of consume versus create. Take time to not only consume the right things, but also to apply what you do consume into your life, and take time to create. Conceptualize your consume into your create. I guess I already talked about that. Get in touch with reality. Live life, don't watch life. I guess I thought it was pretty clever when I wrote that this morning. But exactly what I was talking about before, of at some point you reach an age and you reach a point in your life to where like you can become the first, like you can become the main character in your own life, but you have to be intentional about it, and it takes time to think about what it is you want to do, and think about what it is, what impact you want, what you want to create. So I would encourage all the guys out there to take time and think like, okay, like just have some form of dialogue at least once a day of checking in with yourself. Like, guys don't do a good enough job of checking in with each other. And if you're not checking in with each other, with like your other guy friends, you certainly aren't checking in with yourself as much as you need to be in a formal setting. I'm not talking about like, oh, I had a bad day, I recognize I had a bad day. I mean like actually sitting down and like collecting your thoughts, writing your thoughts down. I do write my thoughts down a lot, but this is another way for me to kind of create and for me to conceptualize everything and put myself on the spot and see what I actually believe in and think about. But yeah, you can become the first person in your own life. You can become the main character in your own life, the hero in your own Hemingway story. The next thing I did want to talk about, I'm trying to pick up on, like I said, universal truths and share them when I do realize them, and kind of document how I view the world as I grow and see how it changes, because the view of the world is certainly different from where I was even this time last year, 3 years ago, 5 years ago. So I had an earth-shattering realization last week, and I haven't been able to shake it, and I wouldn't really have done this podcast if I didn't have this realization. But I was consuming content last week, and I follow a couple like classic, this is such me thing for those that do know me personally, a couple like classic literature YouTubers that review classic literature, and someone was reviewing a play, and stay with me here, like this will be applicable to you. I don't care if you hate literature, that's fine. I'll only slightly judge you, but like, stay with me. This has nothing to do with literature. But someone was reviewing a play by Samuel Beckett called Waiting for Godot. And the entire play is 2 hours long, and it's two characters standing by a tree, and they're just waiting for this guy, Godot. I think this, I don't know where this took place. Godot sounds French. I've never read the play. And they're waiting for this guy's friend, Godot, to show up. And the entire time, they just talk about nonsense. Just going back and forth of talking about nothing for 2 hours. And throughout it, they keep going, while they're waiting, they say, should we go? Should we keep waiting? And they're like, yeah, we should go. And then, like, they don't go. And the final 2 words of the play are, one character goes to the other, he says, we should go, right? And he says, yes, let's go. And then the stage brackets in a play of, it tells characters of where to walk and whatnot. The final line is, and they don't move. And the way that this particular YouTuber described really the significance behind it, like, it was everything I've been needing in my life and everything I've probably been searching for, of just the concept of waiting in general. I remember, what's crazy, this is like a year and a half, 2 years ago now. I was at a point in my life where I even identified it of, like, I need to learn how to wait. I told myself that I need to learn how to wait. And it wasn't until I saw this person and I was consuming this content where this girl, she was talking about the meaning behind it of when you're, like, the whole concept of waiting just doesn't exist. There's no such thing as waiting. I thought I needed to learn how to wait until I realized waiting doesn't exist. Think back to when you were in high school, you're at that point in your life to where you say, like, oh, once I get to college, I'll be all right. And then you get to college and you say, once I get that internship, I'll be all right. Once I get that full-time offer, I'll be all right. Once I graduate, I'll be all right. Once I start my career, I'll be all right. Once I find that lasting partner, that long-term partner, I'll be all right. Once I get married, I'll be all right. Once I have kids, I'll be all right. Once I retire, I'll be all right. And there's always something more. Like, the waiting is never over. You just find something else to wait for. And once I realized that, I was just like, I need to share this with as many people as possible, because it's something I've really struggled with, is exactly that feeling right there of just waiting for that next step and thinking that once you get there, everything's going to be okay. And then you wake up when that moment is there and you realize, like, nothing's changed. Like, you're still the same person. Those made up milestones don't impact who you are as a person. And so, like, the main takeaway I had from that I really want to share, this universal truth that I've tried to pick up on, is that there is no destination. I'll repeat that. There's no end goal. There is no end destination. The only destination is learning how to enjoy the journey. Like, that's it. Like, life is a journey, whether you like it or not. Like, those moments of waiting for the next thing, like, that is your life. Those days are just as important as those other future days to come. And so once I realized that, like, it was so freeing to really just focus on being intentional of day to day, of trying to extract value, because one day you're gonna wake up and that's gonna be the last time you wake up. And, like, who's to say that day was any more important than the next? And just really trying to soak out and extract every good part about what it is to be human and what it is to live and what it is to feel. Like, make sure you extract out of every day, because those moments where you feel like you're waiting for the next thing, you'll look back on them and you'll be like, wow, like, hey, that feels so long ago, of like, wow, I wish I could go back then. I wish I knew what I knew now. And it's like, it's nice to have that introspection of the now. I don't know. It was just really freeing for me, and I wanted to share that thing. So I did write that down as a talking point. And now I see that it's been 34 minutes. So glad I talked for 20 minutes last time, 34 minutes now. It's a great way to make a road trip go fast. Just talk to yourself. And I don't even know if this audio is going to be even better, but we'll see. I might be able to edit some background noises. But the last thing I did want to talk about is going back to consuming content. I just finished a book last week called The Defining Decade. The Defining Decade by Meg J, PhD, question mark. Anyways, this girl, this woman, this doctor, I guess give her all the titles that she deserves. She's absolutely brilliant. She was a therapist, psychologist, psychotherapist, and she wrote this book about the defining decade, what she defines as the defining decade in our lives, of why your 20s are important and why they matter, and that our society today kind of preaches that your 20s don't matter and that your 20s are a time to explore, and that your 30s are what matter. And the whole purpose of her book was kind of saying how that's wrong, and she's very blunt. It's an absolute kick in the butt for you if you are a young adult just entering the workforce, of like really forces you to ask yourself questions that I personally was avoiding for a long time. Of just, I bought into that society talk of, oh, ask me when I'm 30, like I'll figure it out when I'm 30. And she just really challenges 20-year-olds, people in their 20s, to start investing in their future early, and that what we do today and what we do at this time in our lives, the people we meet, the people we surround ourselves, the things we consume, this is the time in our lives where it will forever impact, more than any other time, the rest of what our life is going to look like. And especially for women, there's like that whole other aspect of it, because they're on more of a biological clock of, you know, our generation is starting to get married later, of getting married 30 to 35 and having kids mid 30s, late 30s. Like, it's just very different than the generations before us. And now I'm hitting traffic. Please don't hit me, car in back. All right, I take away the sponsorship from the highways of America. All right, we're at a stop on the highway. We got a quiet road though. Maybe I should just restart filming and do it all over so that the audio is as clean as this is. Anyways, the defining decade. I've been talking a lot, going 80 miles an hour, but I don't need to. I can slow down and go 10 miles an hour. It's interesting. But anyways, the defining decade. Why your 20s matter. It's nice to kind of relax in my own podcast. It's crazy what slamming on your brakes will do to you. It's that initial shot of adrenaline, followed back home, followed by a slight anger and slight impatience. But we're there. Anyways, the defining decade. Yeah, so just all about like the people that we're meeting, the relationships that we're forming, the jobs that we're taking, the things we're creating. Like, it's not worth it to wait until you're 30 to do something about your life. So for anyone, like, I can't give a good enough description. I would just highly recommend anyone listening that has made it through 40 minutes of this podcast. I would just really recommend reading that book, The Defining Decade, for anyone. I don't even care what stage you are in your life. I highly recommend reading that and just starting that self-dialogue, it's gonna make you a little bit uncomfortable. It does force you to ask some tough questions. For me, like, when it came to relationships, I was always like, yeah, ask me when I'm 30, like, don't care. But then it's like, no, you should probably start thinking about that now, because things take time and life takes time. So yeah, I would recommend. So we're at a complete stop now, and I just made eye contact with the guy next to me. I enjoyed going 80 miles an hour passing people on the highway, instead of talking into my phone here. So that's the introvert inside of me feeling a little uncomfortable. But yeah, anyways, go read that. The guys out there, start that self-dialogue. Maybe get into some skincare. Try it out. Listen to some other episodes. Let me know what you want me to talk about next. Let me know what you're creating. Let me know what you're consuming. Book recommendations. But I'll catch you guys on the next road trip. I got to see how this audio is. Catch you on the way back. But that's all for now. Thanks for being here. We'll see you next time.